So in this video, I'm going to look at a few more examples of the types of tests and identifying them. So the state superintendent of schools consistently states that the average, okay, this is always the key word, salary of all substitute teachers in every school district is at least 60 per day. The president of the teachers union believes that the average salary is less than 60 per day. So she samples 8 school districts to help test her claim. The daily salaries are found in the districts were the following numbers. So we are looking at average, which means, again, it's some type of t-test. And we're looking at comparing 8 school districts to this believed average amount of pay. And so this is just one set of data that we're collecting. So because we're doing one sample, this is an example of a one sample t-test. Again, because we're doing averages and we're just taking one set of data. So this is my sample. These 8 school districts are my sample. And I'm going to test that against the null, believing that it's 60 per day. So a second example, nationwide, it is estimated that 40% of service stations have gas leaks that leak to some extent. California is trying to lessen the prevalence of these leaks. We want to assess the effectiveness of their efforts by seeing if the percentage of service stations whose tank leaks has decreased. To do this, we randomly sampled 27 service stations in California and determined that only 7 of the stations have tanks that leak. Is there evidence that California's efforts are effective? So in this one, we have a percentage and we found our data to be 7 out of the 27. And so that is a proportion. So this is a proportion. And we did one sample. We sampled 27 service stations and that's it. So this, because we have one sample of proportion, this is a one prop z-test, okay, or one proportion z-test. And then the next example, clinicians want to know if there's a difference between the proportion of teenagers that smoke and the proportion of senior citizens that smoke. So again, we're looking at a difference between the proportion of teenagers and the proportion of senior citizens. So I have 2 groups and I'm looking at proportions. And so we're doing the 2 prop z-test. Anytime we're looking at 2 groups and proportions. And the 2 prop z-test, the paired t-test, and the 2 sample t-tests all are comparing the differences. We're assuming that they're equal. Like you can write again the null in this case as like P proportion of teenagers is equal to the proportion of senior citizens, or you can write it as the difference between them is equal to 0. So these tests are always looking at the difference between the 2 groups. Okay, and then 2 more. Clinicians wanted to determine if there is an association between gender and letter grade. So anytime we're talking about an association, we're looking at a relationship between the 2 groups. And when we're looking at a relationship between the groups, we're trying to see, are they independent or not independent? And so an association is always, we're doing the chi-squared test for independence. Okay, and again, you have to put in the test for independence. If you just put chi-square test, I don't know if it's that one or the goodness of fit, and so you won't get the full credit for it. And the last one, you want to determine if the types of chocolate in the Easter basket are uniform. So types of chocolate are, again, categorical or qualitative. And so I'm looking at one of the tests for the qualitative. And this one, because I'm looking at their uniform, that is the chi-squared goodness of fit test. Okay, good. And we're looking for if they're uniform or they're a certain percentage or they're what we expected it to be. Okay, so that's an example of identifying all the tests. Again, if you have questions, please let me know.